Hey everyone, welcome to a RenderSpaz video tutorial, and we're going to show you how to create a realistic looking jellyfish. And what we have in front of us here is pretty much what we're going to create in 3D Studio Max. And we're also going to get a little helping hand from Sculptris, the software that's was created by Pixel Logic, the guys that made ZBrush. So let's get started by creating creating a box inside 3D Studio Max. And we'll go by 2020 here in the length and width. Height-wise, we can go around to 15, and we're just going to start to block out our jellyfish. I'll hide the grid, and then we'll start to add some segments here. We'll do 2 by 2. Grab the bottom piece here, and we'll just inset this a bit. Just make sure we have everything selected at the bottom here, nothing on the sides. And we're going to extrude up, and it's going to give us a little bit of like a double, kind of like a dome, half dome that a jellyfish would have. So there's like an inner dome that the jellyfish has in the head of it. So it's kind of interesting, but you'll see it make more sense as we move forward. So let's just give it a basic blue. Nothing really special here. I'm going to throw on our a little bit of smoothing. Okay, we're going to use the subdivision surface tool here, and then we have now a nice looking half dome with kind of a inside, just kind of like a middle piece here that kind of comes in and dips in. So we'll just grab. We'll grab these guys here, and then we'll just give it a little bit of a ring. We'll connect, bring this down, so that way we can create this bottom piece here. And what happens is we need this to fold in a bit. Jellyfish kind of have the bottom piece here just kind of folding in. So if I scale it down, it rounds off. It kind of looks something like this. Right? You can always just Google jellyfish and get some reference images, and you'll see what I'm doing here. Okay, so I'm just going to round this guy off a bit. It's a little bit square, so I just want to kind of deform this a bit. And we have a lot of freedom here because it's such an organic model we're creating here. This is it doesn't have to be very uniform. It doesn't have to be very symmetric. So we can get away with a lot of moving around and not having to be so much symmetry. All right, so just moving these points around, just kind of rounding off the corners, and kind of just figuring out what will work best here. Grab these points, drag them in. Pretty straightforward. Okay, so we got this half-looking dome thing here, and what we're going to do is we're going to bring this into Sculptris, and we're going to continue our modeling in that software. So let's get into Sculptris. So just to let you know, you'll export this as an OBJ, and then you'll move on here and bring it into Sculptris. So we got a lot to play with here. I'm not going to go through all the settings or nothing like that. I'm just going to get straight to the point. I'm just going to do some tests here to make sure I get the brush exactly how I want it. Okay, so we can say no detail at this moment, and that way it won't add any adaptive detail. We can just kind of go in and start to move some of this mesh around. So I can use the grab tool and start to play with the brush, and we can start moving things around. Maybe I want it a little bit bigger, and this way now, instead of going through Max and trying to round this guy off, I can do this here in Sculptris. It makes it a little bit more simple to pull off that task. Okay, and so we're going to start to just sculpt a bit here and change the bottom pieces here of the of the jellyfish so that it's not even. Okay, we want to rough it up. Maybe grab, let's see here, the move tool, and just bring this in. Okay, we'll just kind of sculpt in here. Try to make it a little bit not so even there, and just start to shape this guy out a little bit here. Okay. So we can use the detailed slider here, and you can see as I add some more mesh, it's kind of adapting to where my targeting or where I'm targeting the brush at. So you can see where the details are being added, the mesh is increasing there. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to come into a crease. We're just going to try to get some creases going here. This will give us some kind of wrinkles here at the bottom. So just going to try to see what I kind of style I want here, and that works. So I'm just going to start to brush this in. I'm holding Shift, and that will smooth out some of these creases, and then holding Alt will invert the crease. If you just pretty much left click and drag, you're gonna have it bulge out. So you just want to hold the Alt, and that will just invert the crease there. So we'll just hold Shift and smooth some of this stuff out. We're just kind of, it's almost like we're creating a little bit of a pillow here. Something that's very organic and just breaks up the bottom here a little bit, makes it more realistic. Okay, so we're just gonna come across, holding Shift. We're gonna smooth those out at the tips of the crease, and then start dragging these out a little bit more. Okay, and make sure you have your lazy brush selected so that you can just be a little bit more free with this. If you're using a tablet, great. That really helps. Right now I'm actually using a mouse. I do have a tablet, I just haven't grabbed it for this, so I'm just kind of going along with this with the mouse. But if you have a tablet, it'd be great to use it for this. So alright, so that's it, pretty much it. We're just getting these creases in a little bit here. I don't like those ones that want to slant, so we can remove them. I'm just kind of grab. Okay, holding Shift a little bit, and let's smooth that out. Alright, so that's looking pretty good so far, and now we can select some other shader here. We can see something that looks more like a jellyfish shader, but you can see our result so far, and everything is looking quite nice. I was going to use this more of a jelly looking shader here. This is going to help for the reflections and kind of seeing where I need to add more detail. Okay, so now we're going to have to start to look at creating the tentacles. And we can do this by using the grab tool. So going this way here, this is not going to do it because it's pretty much following every time I move the or I grab a piece of the geometry, it's going to go in the direction that my camera is facing with the model. So we're going to hold Shift and then drag, and it's going to bring to the front or side views. Okay, and this is going to help so that we're in an orthographic state here. If we grab these the sides here, you can see we start to pull these guys down. And tentacles are going to start to appear here. We just got to grab, there we go, and keep grabbing the piece of geometry, and it will just follow along. It's very cool, but just like I said, try not to be on the perspective mode, because that's going to, whatever angle you are, it's pretty much where the camera is, it's going to, the geometry is going to follow with that camera angle. So if you stay on orthographic here, you're going to get away with, for this time being anyways, you're going to get a better result. So I'm going to just grab these guys, bring them down. Okay, you can see it tapers off down there as you keep holding it. You can also smooth it out by holding shift. And so if you make it too much, one spot is a little bit too wide in the tentacle, you can, by holding shift, you will smooth that out and shrink it. Okay, so I'm just going to draw these guys out. I am actually using perspective here, but if I'm going to do that, then I'm going to have to check all the angles and make sure I am putting those tentacles in the right direction. Okay. So just making sure I check the sides here, and yes, it's curving in. So far so good. So it just takes a little time to getting used to if you haven't used this program, but it's pretty straightforward. Grab these guys. Okay, I'm holding shift there, and it looks a little straight, and I'm going to fix a lot of these up. The tentacles, we're going to start to bend them and change them all as a global move, but for now we're just going to lay them out here. Okay, I may want to curl this one in a little bit. Take this guy, see how it's straight, so I'm just going to have to try to somehow bend him a bit, so I can take the one edge here, just kind of move these guys in. Okay, we hold shift and we will, excuse me, we'll smooth it out, and things are looking a little bit more realistic with these guys. So I got some thin ones and some wider ones. We want to keep it a little bit, we want some variation here. Okay, they're not all the same, so we're just going to move these tentacles a little bit more. Just take my time a little bit on this, and we're going to see some good results. Okay, I like to make them a little bit wavy. All right. So if I try to scale some of these right now, I just want to practice with this and see what we get. We can move them around by using the scale. We can also kind of grab some more of these here. Okay, let's finish it off before I start to scale it. Okay, let's thin this one out and just drag these guys. Okay, so spend your time on this, because this is what makes the jellyfish look a little bit more realistic if you just take your time with these ones. And these are the main, or the bigger tentacles, and then we're going to go into some smaller ones later on in 3D Studio Max. Alright, so I finished it all up, and everything's looking pretty good with the tentacles. We could start to try to do some global on pretty much wider... sorry, what I want to say is the brush, we want it to be a little bit wider so that we can grab all the tentacles together here and start to just kind of bring them all as a whole here so that we can adjust them on a global scale here. Just moving around. Okay, and we'll shift here. This just kind of look a little funny, but now we kind of moved them everything down a little bit and bring these guys in. Okay, so just little small adjustments, but this is looking quite nice, and we're starting to see some really nice results here. Okay, so these are just small tweaks I'm doing here, and it's looking pretty nice. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into 3D Studio Max, and we're going to continue the tentacles and start adding more detail and get this guy ready for setting up materials and rendering. Alright, so let's get into Max and let's continue. Okay, so I'm going to import our object after we've exported from Sculptris. We're going to make sure that we have retriangulate polygons off. Okay, that way we have a nice smooth surface here. And now that we're set, we have a pretty low poly, 199,000 polys. It's not too bad. And we can now start to work with this guy. So what I'm going to do is grab the inner part here of the head of the jellyfish. We're going to grow to a certain extent here, just to around the edges. Okay, I want to make sure it's a little bit even around the sides, so I'm just going to try these guys and see when I grow, does it hit my mark. So hit grow. Okay, yeah, that's a little bit better. Okay. Grow it a few times more here, and then we can now we'll hold shift and we'll drag out a piece here and pretty much make a clone of a of an object here and just bring this out. Okay, so now we have a piece of the inner head of the jellyfish, and we're going to use this as a reference point for creating our smaller tentacles. Okay, so this is it's a little bit beat up, so we're just going to have to try to grab the edges here. We'll grow it a bit till we get a little bit of a belt. Okay, we're going to hit Control I and then invert it, and then we're just going to delete out the rest of the poly, so we have this kind of like belt here. Okay, and we're going to call this extra tentacles. Okay. And now we use a Pro Optimizer, which is because we're not going to see this in the render. We're just going to use this guy as a reference. So we'll come over and we'll start to apply the hair and fur modifier. Okay, so if we render this guy right now, we can see that everything looks a little bit funky. So we're going to have to adjust this so it starts to look a little bit more like the tentacles there. So let's grab our styling tool here, and we're just going to drag these guys down. Okay, you can pretty much step out a little bit here. We can bring them all down as a whole. Okay, let's make them a little bit wavy. Just check all sides, make sure everything's not going in one angle here. Right. Then we're going to come down and let's see here. We'll finish the styling, and we'll move down, and we can see that we have our hair count. We're going to bring that down to around 500 maybe, or 1,000. Hit render, and we can see that we don't need that much. It doesn't have to be that dense, so like we just need a fair amount so that it looks a little bit more realistic here. So we're going to make sure that this band here is not renderable. Okay, so we're just going to focus on these guys, on these little strands. And we can start to now play with the settings here a bit. So if we go back to the styling, okay, we can come down here and we can use the scale tool and we can just scale these guys down. Okay, so that's going to give us a nice length to our tentacles here. Okay, we're just going to move these guys around, make them a little bit wavy. Okay, right now they're a little bit straight, but we're getting a little bit further in the game here. We just need to play with a little bit more stuff here. We're just going to move these guys around. Okay, and that's not looking too bad. But it's still straight, and we still got to work out and make it a little bit more wavy and change some things there. So if we bring up our hair segments, that's going to help with the curling and the waviness. Okay, so we're just going to move a little bit of these, a couple settings around, tip thickness, maybe a little bit. Change that and just take a look and see what we have. Okay. Alright, we're just going to move the kink a little bit, just to give it a little bit more wave to it, and that's going to give us some realism there, okay? We don't want the strands to be so straight, and we'll bring down the hair count a little bit more. So that's getting better. Okay, maybe a little less density. So we'll just scale these guys a little bit more. Bring that up a bit. Okay, and now we're starting to see some better results. We might also have to come down. Let's put the, let's see here. If we do the segments, we can put it maybe to about 20. That's going to help with more realism. Okay. So once we have that, we can now place it inside our jellyfish here, and we can see our strands coming out, and this is perfect. This is exactly what I was looking for, just to give that extra detail, and it's definitely worth the while to take your time and create this as well. So let's come over to our convert tool here, and let's change the hair to a mesh, because we no longer need that modifier now. We can either hide it or just delete it out, in case you just want to, if you want to change later on while you're working, you can change these strands so you can keep them, you know, hidden in the scene. But this is pretty much looking good so far. So we hit render, we don't see anything. We want to make sure the mesh is, the normals are flipped the correct way. So let's select our faces here and flip them. We hit render, we don't see anything, and I think because of that we need to go into our properties and make it renderable again. Hit render, and voila. So now we have an excellent looking okay. So what we're going to do here is we're going to finalize our model here, our jellyfish model, with the center tentacles, the bigger ones that they have in the middle. And we're going to do this by creating a poly, pretty much just drawing this out, okay, with the poly tools. We'll widen this up. We'll ring here and connect. All right. So if we try to add maybe a tessellate here, and we don't really have it working here, so I think what we need to do is let's grab this guy here, delete him out. Let's try to do another tessellate here and see what we get. Okay, yes, and that's working. Okay, we can convert this now to an editable poly, and now we can start to just, we're going to delete a little bit of polys from the side and from the edges. And that's going to create these little kind of gaps within this tentacle here. So I don't know if I really need the spray brush. I was thinking of using it, but now I want to be a little bit more precise. We'll just go back to the rectangle here and just grab some of these edges. Okay. Just randomly go through. Once we get these guys all selected, you'll see what's going to happen here next. Okay, we'll delete. Get up here as well. Okay, once we have this, we can add a shell modifier. Alright, we'll bring this down to about 0.14. Okay, then we'll add a turbo smooth. And we might need to end up throwing a relax on that as well. Bring this down. Okay, something like this. So we have this little strand here. Okay, with the parts of the edges knocked out. So now what we can do is throw a noise modifier on. And we'll have to start to blend this in with the tentacles that we have in place for our jellyfish. Okay, so already we have a nice looking tentacle that we can use here, our middle tentacle. This big, huge piece here. Let's see if we can add a bend modifier to this as well. Okay, we move these guys in different directions. I don't want that. We're just going to kind of get something that we like here that looks decent. Okay, yeah, we can twist it like this, which actually looks quite nice. Okay, we'll come down and add another bend modifier. Or actually scratch that. We'll go to a twist instead. Okay, and we can start to play with the twist here and just kind of get that a little bit more like a swirl to it. And then also we can use a taper to possibly taper the end here just a bit. So let's get this in the right spot by Y and bring this in. Something like this. Just to change shape. X, Z, and then just bring this guy. So unhide everything here. Okay, let's bring it in the middle here. Just kind of scale this up. Go to the top. Okay, we'll just shift, drag, and make a duplicate, and just bring this guy over here. So then we have two. Okay, we don't want them intersecting, but we're going to change one property here a little bit just to make some randomize. Just randomize this a bit. Make it unique than the other one. It looks kind of the same right now, so I'm just going to move around here and just change some of the properties. So it's not looking too bad. We're getting very close to finishing up this jellyfish model. But with a few little tools and a little bit of sculpting, we end up with some pretty cool results that we can use for having a realistic jellyfish and then getting a nice cool render out of this guy. Okay, so I'm just really messing around with the properties, just trying to get some variation here. Might want to grab one more as well. If we grab them both, bring them to the center. I'm thinking maybe if we bring this down a little bit and say add another one. Let's see here. Center a bit more. So if we add another one, just drag it over. Let's put it in this corner here. Okay, that's not looking too bad. We'll twist this a bit, just change it up. Okay, just so it looks a little bit different than the other ones. Maybe just different noise to it. You can see it wraps around the other one. That actually looks really cool. And that's pretty much it. That's going to sum this video up. We're going to go into a part 2 series, so stay tuned for that, where we're going to start to texture and, well, add materials, texture, and finish this guy up in V-Ray. Okay, guys, I'll see you in the next video.